Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone, everyone. It's so good to see you. So good, well, not to see you, but to good to have you in this space. We're back this month, the month of February, Black History Month, with a real talk with TC moment, where we'll be going through the topics of Black history and race, and how that has not only affected us, but how we think of that not only as a church, but across generations. This evening, we are in for a treat and a surprise. We are in to hear from some of the members of Turner's Chapel across generations as it relates to race and racism and all the things that have to do with Black History Month as we recognize the progress we have made, but as we also look at how far we have to go. That we know this is a month of celebration, this is a month of acknowledgement. This is a month of gratitude, where we pay homage to those who have gone before us, while simultaneously looking forward to that which is ahead. And so this evening, I'm going to introduce our guest. We have with us Brother Hank Presley, representing his generation. We have with us
Mhm.
Sister Sonia Smith, who will be representing her generation. We have with us also Sister Ebony Pender, representing her generation. And I'm not sure if she's here quite yet, um, but Sister Carly Harrison. Oh, she's here. Okay, awesome, 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 awesome. So we have these individuals, these people, these individuals from and members of Turner's Chapel who play a variety of roles in the life of the church and in the life of the community. And so we're just going to have a talk, a conversation about exactly what Black History Month means to them, and the heritage that we possess, as well as where we are and can go moving forward. So I'm gonna change one of the questions. Just to first and foremost, wish you all a happy Black History Month, and ask the question: what does Black History Month mean to you? And we're gonna start with Brother Hank. Then we'll go to Sister Carly, and then Sister Ebony.
Well, thank you. Black History Month to me is a little bit. I'm a little bit ambivalent about it. Uh, as a child, as I was growing up, we had what was called Negro History Week. It was a week that was started by the uh, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and it was intended to highlight some of the accomplishments and achievements of members of the Negro race, as we were called back then. You know, there was a situation where the concern was our self worth. So Dr. Woodson uh, established this Negro History Week. So as we move forward in time, Negro History Week has morphed into a Black History Month. And I have seen Black History Month be so commercialized. There seems to be a number of people who are making more money off it than there seems to be effect coming from the recognition of the month. So it's a little bit different for me. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you so much, Brother Hank. Sister Carly.
I would say, can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Um, I would say Black History Month. I think it's an important time of the year. A time I don't think similar to what Mr. Hank said. It's not the importance of it and the true meaning of it is not touched on enough, like with organizations and how it how it directly affects people the month, and there's not enough activities to really celebrate it. But I do think it's a really good things to highlight Black people in their struggle and triumph over time.
Absolutely, absolutely. To highlight those triumphs and those struggles. Sister Ebony.
Good evening. I think I pretty much agree with what both Mr. Hank and Carly said. Um, I think that Black History Month gives us an opportunity to highlight our own history that's not typically highlighted in the day to day history in schools, in media, um, on the internet, things that we don't typically. I think every year that we celebrate Black History, I think I see a new fact about things I didn't know, because it's not things that we talk about on a day to day basis. Um, but I do agree also, in the sense of it not being celebrated in the correct way, or enough. Um, I see the commercials, as time has gone on, it's gotten more commercialized, I think, um, rather than truly trying to, I guess, spread the word and really celebrate it. But maybe that's just, a new generation thing and how they celebrate it. But to me, just going back to answer the question, I think to me, Black History Month just gives us an opportunity to celebrate our culture, celebrate our history, and highlight the accomplishments and how far we've come. Because, like I said, that's not what we typically see. It's like our month to really make it known, compared to the 11 other months in the year.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think those all great responses from everyone, and thank you for taking the time to answer that. I know that I think Sister Sonia was on. I think we're having some technical difficulties with her right now, but um, when all that gets situated, we'll be sure to include her in the conversation as well. Some interesting things came out of that. The commercialization of Black History Month, the idea and even the notion and fact that there's every year there seems to be new information we learn about Black people, Black inventions or inventions period made by Black people, um, that we did not know, and we come into that awareness. So I'm going to start off with that first question that was given to you. What was race and conversations about race like for you growing up? And we're going to start with Sister Ebony, then go to Carly, Sister Carly, and then go to Brother Hank.
Okay. So for me, honestly, I don't really feel like it was much conversation about race, growing up in my generation, other than, of course, discussing it during Black History Month, and um, talking about it in school. I don't really recall it being much conversation. Of course, I was always taught to, treat everyone with respect and treat everyone equally, that type of thing. But talking about specific history, like I said, other than when it was talked about in school, or as I got older, and the media became more prominent. Um, of course, that was something that we um, became more aware of, I guess, because it was always highlighted, especially when like the Black Lives Matter movement started and things like that. So I really don't feel like growing up for me, it was a big conversation, which may, you know, strike an issue, but it really was not much conversation. I don't really feel until I really got in my latter teenage years and moving into like adulthood. I think around that time is when the Black Lives Matter movement really kind of came about. um, we started seeing more, police brutality, and I think that's when those type of things, the race conversation, really started to really emerge. But before that, I really don't feel like it was much of a conversation, other than don't be racist, don't be prejudiced, treat others equally. I never, I always had friends of different races and things like that. I was never taught, of course, to be negative or treat others differently, but it wasn't much of a conversation for me.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that. Thank you. Carly, it's your turn.
Okay, I would say there was not much conversation about race, or it wasn't an everyday topic. I know from probably all the elementary, like Ebony said, I had friends from different backgrounds. I didn't really know the individual differences and history of everybody. So it really wasn't something that was touched on, especially in school, like the idea of race and just differences. And other than like the basic slavery and stuff, I didn't know. They never talked about how it impacted us today, and you know how there's still differences in society. But now ever since I've entered high school and later years of middle school, I would say that it's more so, it's because of the Black Lives Matter movement and the protests and the more arising of the issue, and more awareness. I think it's been a bigger topic, and I can see the difference now. And through self education, I've been able to learn the differences in race. But in school, I wouldn't say it was talked about, nor the household. Just simple things like love each other was taught, and I just was social with everybody. I didn't know any differences.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Brother Hank.
Okay, thank you. This is a really, really good topic, I think. Um, whenever I think back to the years of growing up, whenever we talk about race back then, there is a hint of terrorism
Mm,
that that spiked the air. Almost all of the time, whenever there was a discussion about white people in the black community, there was a level of fear, a fear that was born of terrorism. Um, the white culture in the South, and it may well have been, and as I have read, it was true in the North as well. But white people um, handled their relationships with black people through terrorism. They managed their relationship with black people through fear. And so I think about the two eminent spokespersons in the black community in the nation back, actually before I was came along, but their words still rang strongly as I was growing up, and they were Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. And so, for the most part, a person was reared in one of those camps. Washington was that guy who felt as though things are coming along really nicely, black people. Let's not rock the boat. Let's take our time and just ease into this love that is certainly going to happen one day, and this sharing of everything. Uh, Du Bois, on the other hand, said to heck with that, because we know that there is hate that is spiking the relationship between the white people and the black people. So Du Bois was the person who said we should take our intellect and force our way into the society. So Du Bois was very much the father of these movements that we see now, these progressive and militant movements. And so my perspective on it was a little bit different, because uh, my family moved from South Carolina whenever I was but a child, a baby, and so we were cotton farmers. And so our relationship with white people was such that, it was like they were the law, and the Jim Crow laws of the day were the things that we embraced and we respected to the nth degree. So some of the things that we were chided with whenever we were growing up was how to act when approached by policemen. We were chided about staying away from white communities, particularly black boys. We were told to observe the Jim Crow laws explicitly, and for the boys, once again, avoid white girls. So it was a situation, an institution of apartheid in North America that was undeniable. It never was called that, though. So we never heard the word apartheid until we started looking at South Africa. But we lived in apartheid. So that was the race relations in our time.
Mm. All right. Thank you for that. That's a wealth of information, and a wealth of information as far as tying this conversation about race and conversations of race. Sister Sonia, I see you now. What
I'm
was
here.
race? What wa- what was race and conversations about race like for you growing up?
Well, I grew up in Philadelphia. Even though my mother was originally from North Carolina, my dad was from Georgia. We really didn't have any conversation about race. Where we lived at that time, it was a mixture of everyone. We had a Jewish community. We had some, um, a mixture of all races. The only time that race came up or in a conversation is when I would come down here visit my grandparents. Um, my grandfather had strong views about certain situations, about certain people. But like I said, growing up in Philadelphia, we really didn't have a conversation. But I make sure I have that conversation with my children now, or when they were growing up until adulthood. Adulthood.
And yeah, and so it sounds like what I'm kind of a tenor that I've heard, or a thread that I've heard in this conversation is that some of the conversations that have been had with our sons or our nephews,
Hmm.
our men are might be different than the conversations we have with our girls and our women.
I
Am
think
I
that's
am I
right.
hit?
I would think
Yes.
I can kind of agree with that, Pastor. Correct.
That's kind of what I'm hearing, and it speaks to something deeper going on there, a deeper project. But we're since we don't have that time, we're gonna we're gonna move forward. But I think it's important to notice that and to
Can I
identify
chime
that.
in with 1 second with that
Yeah,
part? I don't
sure, sure
know. For
thing.
me, I don't know if it was a thing of it just wasn't being like a conversation. I think it was more so just us just not having that type of issue at the time. Like, if
Mm,
that makes sense. Like, we didn't really. I don't know. I don't really recall like going through like elementary, middle, and high school. Maybe before up until like my freshman or sophomore year of high school, I really don't recall it really being a lot of issues where we came across like race issues in
Hmm.
front of our faces as much. I think it's starting to come up more nowadays, but like I think that's more so why it wasn't talked about with me and like in my friend group or like at school and stuff because it just wasn't something that was like a need, I guess. But of course, as time went on, I think the like Trayvon Martin situation and Mike Brown, like that type of stuff started occurring like my sophomore junior year. It might have been my freshman year, I don't remember, but that's kind of start when those type of conversations really started coming up.
hmm.
Um, so I think that was more so like why it wasn't a conversation, other than us just not wanting to talk about it.
Right, right, right. Absolutely, and I can see that. I can see that. I can see that as well. All right. So now we're going to move on to the hot question, the hot take. And it is a question that I think has been asked of. It's often debated. It can be controversial, but it's a question that has to be asked because it there's something to this question. There's something to it, and there's something to be said about it. So the question is: do you think integration benefited us? Do you think integration benefited Black people? And so we're gonna start with Sister Sonia, and we're gonna go. I'm gonna go up my screen from Sister Sonia to Carly to Ebony, and then to Brother Hank.
So when it comes to integration and benefited us, I guess, speak from my personal experience. Like I said, by growing up in Philadelphia, I was sent to a prominent private school in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. I don't think if integration was there, I wouldn't have been able to go. That's just my opinion. I knew my dad wanted better education for me and my sister than what we had in the neighborhood that we were in. So he sent us to a private school, whether I wanted to go or not. I wanted to go to the neighborhood school, of course. So in personal, I would say for me, I can only speak for Sonia that it did help. That I did get an education, you know, that benefited me when I went on to college. Let me put it that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Sister Carly.
I would say as well, it did, based off of my experience, like Sister Tanya said, like my experience from now, I can see that I feel like it benefited me, because I know my mom has always like preached the importance of being around different people and learning different cultures. So I feel like if, you know, if segregation was still here, I know that I wouldn't be able to experience different cultures as well. I wouldn't, I would kind of only see life maybe from a certain point of view, possibly. But yeah, and I know in the past, I think it benefited people to a degree. There was cons of it when it first started at the beginning, because I'm like forcing students to go with white counterparts caused a lot of violence, distracting of learning, and things like that, and discrimination while you're trying to learn. So I know the negative impacts of it as well. But today, I would say I'm grateful for it. But I can see sometimes how, um, I can see how in the past it may have been a negative thing.
Okay, okay, that's a fair assessment. Thank you for that, Sister Ebony.
I think it did. I mean, I know we have our issues now, but I also don't really feel like us being segregated would have been productive for long. Um, Especially if it was a type of situation where we were getting the short end of the stick. Um, so I personally feel like it benefited us. I don't know. I really couldn't see. Of course, I'm a little biased because of my time, but I really couldn't even see us like how it would be like nowadays. Like, and like Sonya said, it would probably shoot down a lot of opportunity for us. Um, and we're a lot more like we're influential and everything, but I don't know if being segregated was productive. I don't think it was productive at all. So I definitely think integration benefited us as a whole. I think for both races, well, all races, but yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that info, that take. Um, Brother Hank.
Yeah, you're right. Integration, that question is a really important one, and I'm sure that it's being spoken, it's being addressed all across this country right now in different groups. However, you know, there's no question that integration has been a benefit to the oppressed group. Uh, one of the things that immediately it improved was access to public accommodations, and that was the primary thing for which we clamored and screamed and grumbled about in this country for decades. Think public accommodations. We were locked out of everything. We had no reason to believe that we were entitled to it because the Jim Crow laws said you are not. And let's see, it also eliminated public marginalization. So it's like being approached on the sidewalk and perhaps somebody spitting on the ground in front of you, as though you're less than the human that you consider yourself. So integration. Whenever the races were all of the boundaries were erased, uh, the mixing of people changed things immediately. But one of the things that I can say it was bad about integration is and was that it destroyed those cultural continuums of that existed among the home, the church, and the school. And those were the three, those, and still are the three places that an oppressed people have to seek refuge. Home, church, and school. And there was a continuum among those three entities back during segregation. Whenever we became one society, so to speak, it's like things just changed. It's never been the same. And in addition to that continuum being obliterated, I would say that some of the cultural goals that we had have been obliterated. So I think that something so bold as a re-engineering of a society is bound to have pluses and minuses. And integration was the boldest thing of my time. So I think I've witnessed the pluses and the minuses.
Hmm. All right. Thank you, Brother Hank, for that. And for those points made. I think it is, it's one of the things that I've often heard or have heard a couple of times is that, we have to also take into account what the full definition of integration is, right? The kind of the merger of society. And so the question has been often asked, have we more so been in an assimilationist project
Hmm.
versus an integration project? And how has that, if it has, benefited us? And you all gave the ways that it has benefited us, and you also touched on those challenges. So we thank you for that. I'm going to skip over question number. Oh,
I'm sorry, Pastor. I like that word that you use, the assimilation. Because whenever things change, one group has to accept something that they did not necessarily find comfortable. So we had to assimilate a culture in order to be accepted. Black people had to assimilate a culture that was totally not who they are, and are still being penalized whenever we don't exhibit the proper assimilation.
mm, still being punished for that. That's true. Very true. Very true. In multiple areas.
Yeah.
I mean, just today, I was talking to my students about the school to prison pipeline, and they were just they were taken aback that people were actually using their test scores to build prisons. Um, and I think it shook them up a little bit. I think it shook them up a little bit, but it was information that they needed to know. That they
Yeah.
needed to know this is this is why your life matters, and this is why what you do with your life, even at that age and stage, matters. So thank you all for your points on that question. I'm going to skip over question number 3 and go to question number 4. What advice would you give young Black people frustrated with the slowness of progress and racial justice? What advice would you give them? Um, and on this one, we're going to start with Sister Ebony, and then Brother Hank, and then we'll go to Sister Sonia and Sister Carly. We'll let you um, be the last on that one.
I'm not gonna lie, this was one of the harder questions, I think. I honestly, I don't know. I feel like nowadays the generations, they kind of want things done like in that moment, and I don't know if some of them really understand how policy and political action take place. Um, so I think maybe patience, but then it's like we've been patient, so it's kind of hard to tell someone to be patient after all this time. Um, I think the most is for them to truly understand how it works, I think. And I think that's something that a lot of generations, the newer generations, know, and they don't get that part of racial justice. They don't get how law and policy and things like that work. And so when things don't go a certain way, or they're being told, well, hey, get into these positions and do this and do that, it's automatically shut down. And so I think the advice that I would give, just knowing that, would just be to really make sure that you truly understand what policy and law and just the whole political aspect of racial justice, how policy works and how um, politics work. Because when you know that, you kind of know how to move. The right way to go about things. Because whether you like it or not, you know, there are things that you're going to have to do that you might not, be in favor of. Um, but I think just not being aware and not really understanding how things work sometimes causes a lot of the frustration, and it also causes the aftermath of it all. Um, and I think it would help. I think education on how policy and politics work would help a lot of frustration, I think, and slowness of progress, and probably would help with engagement in a lot of this
Mm,
stuff as well.
mm. That's good. Will help with engagement. That's wow. Yeah, very much so.
Because you have people, no, I'm gonna let y'all go. The last, like, I think, you know, the most frustrating thing for me is seeing people in my generation have all this to say about racial justice, politics, laws, what's not going on, what's not happening, and then those are the same people who don't vote, or aren't even registered to vote, have never voted before. The most voting they ever did was in high school. We used to do those little fake ballots. Like, I mean, that's the most they've ever been politically engaged. And so to me, it baffles me when that's why I make that point of it would encourage engagement, because it's like you don't understand how much that vote counts, and getting into these positions where you can make a difference and make those type of decisions and have a voice, it matters. And so um I think that's like the main advice I would give. Like, that's important. And until you understand that, you're not going to understand why things are moving so slow. And you're going
Hmm.
to always be frustrated.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I think that's really good. Brother Hayne.
Yeah, I truly enjoyed listening to that, Ebony. Thanks a lot, because you kept alluding to the idea of racial justice, and I think it's important for us, even as adults, to understand. In order for there to be justice, there must be injustice. So for there to be a yin, there must be a yang. So I think that it's important that uh, young people, especially, but even older people, should, if not embrace the fact, but recognize the fact that the field is not level, and it's most likely that it never will be.
Mm,
But but don't be afraid to ask the question why, and don't be afraid to attempt to do the best that you can in this unlevel system. So and it's okay to recognize that people hate you. Some people hate you, and they will, and it's okay. But that doesn't stop you from loving. So some people want to reciprocate hate. You don't like me, so I don't like you. Well, you're pulling yourself down whenever you get down with the hogs. You get in the slump with the hogs, you get muddy. So I say, to find a true completeness, I would advise, and I do advise younger people especially, and I'm trying to do it with older people, to search their history. Find out who you are. Don't rely on the person or the people that your oppressor has told you that you are, because that was a device of keeping you from feeling good about yourself. So if I want to
Hmm.
keep you down, I tell you something that that helps you to keep yourself down. So I could go on forever like about this, but I think that what Ebony was talking about was justice and engagement. And if you don't get into the system and engage the system, even though the system is beating you down, you will not experience any level of success. And the success that you experience may not come up to that of the success of your oppressor, but you can find just as much happiness in doing as well as you can as he does or she does. Stop there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you, Sister Sonia.
Well, I guess I took it with another perspective. Um, I took it on with the voting issue because I've always have told my boys the importance of voting, not the big elections, but the small elections, the primary elections. You know, um, growing up, my dad always called on election day and said, "Did you vote today?" Because now we have the right to vote. Always said to research your candidate, the candidates, and see which one, you know, you don't have to vote straight party ticket. Whoever you feel as though in your heart is has the same type of meaning that you want to have done. But to me, it starts with voting. You cannot to me, you can't tell me anything about what someone else did and you didn't vote.
Mm,
So I always tell my boys, start at the bottom, whether it's a mayor, the local primaries, your school board, your commissioners, and you go and you build from there as the primaries go because everything starts from the bottom and goes to the top. It's not vote for that president that's going to get you what you need. You got to start at the bottom
absolutely.
and go
That's so
up.
true.
But to me, in order to have some sort of level playing field, we have to start there.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we've heard the saying, all politics is local. And I think if anything, this kind of ties in with what has been said earlier, that um, the engagement part is hard. It's hard for you to have such a strong opinion. Everybody, of course, is entitled to their own opinion, but it's hard to have a strong opinion when you haven't engaged the process and you haven't engaged the landscape um, to do your part in making it better. So absolutely, absolutely. Carly.
I would just say that to help people, you know, when it comes for advice, I would say education is a really big thing, and that's something that has directly impacted me positively because trying to enlighten yourself on black issues because you think you know everything and then you don't, especially at a young age. There's so many topics and things that come up. There's so many people you don't know who have impacted society. I think that's the best way to go about it. And from personal experience, I know I had like a major frustration and almost anger during like the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020 quarantine and all that. It was really frustrating to feel like your race was really getting the short end of the stick always, and it has been
Mm,
since the beginning. Um, so to fight that, I started. Well, I would say watch if you're not really a big reader. I would say watch documentaries, and learn about like black success stories. It doesn't have to always be like a issue type topic. You can learn about people who have helped the community and who've been better, and um, and I would say try to build a friend group or associate with people who had like share your viewpoints of on race and who can help you get through it as well. Because when you have other students, especially at this age, you may feel, well, as a young child, you may feel like some people aren't mature enough to have the conversation. I would say put it out there and really try to connect with people in that way. Because first you'll find really good friends, and you'll just connect with people more and find a way to bond. And on top of that, I would say for the frustration, like the frustration, it can sometimes overwhelm you, and just to keep yourself, somewhat sane about the whole thing, because it's really a lot to take in. Um, just from a self happiness type of point of view, I would say you have to you have to kind of think of the mainstream of like the whole idea of life, and you say, I'm gonna do the best I can. I'm gonna try to help my people the most I can. I'm gonna try to be involved, learn things, do the best I can to make it better in any way, by voting, by joining classes, seminars, doing things like this. Just try to be better as a person, and you'll find joy. You'll find joy in that. And with the wide variety of issues, you know you just have to hope for the best and put your say in it and do your part in it as much as you can do as an individual citizen.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Um, well, we've come to our last and our final question for the night. I want to thank our panelists for taking time out of their evening to spend with us and to delve into real Black history, real talk with Turners, with TC. We thank you for your time and are grateful for your insight. And at this time, with our last question, encompassing all that you shared tonight and even some that you haven't gotten the chance to share, the final question is, what kind of world do you hope to leave when you depart from here? And we're going to start with Sister Carly, go to Sister Ebony, Sister Sonia, and then we'll close with Brother Hank.
I would say I feel like I have many years to live, so I'm not sure the future. There's so many things going on, so it's a wide thing. But I would say something I hope for is just a unity. And I just hope that one day the government and the systematic part of racism was not so evident, into the point where it affects Black lives so much, to the point where you have like you're not able to succeed in certain opportunities, and you're looked at differently. A job application, like I just wish for everybody to have the same amount of opportunities, um, and not be judged as much, and everybody just enlighten themselves, and just be enlighten themselves on the idea that we're all essentially the same, and we can all succeed. But yeah, I would just say, like, I hope one day the government isn't so impacted. You don't have leaders that are leading in a racist format, or not really seeking justice for all, and policies that were once enacted, I hope that they are somehow reversed and put in place to be better.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Carly.
I believe for me, very similar to what Carly said. My biggest thing I think would be unity and understanding. Um, I think a big part of the racial divide is a lack of understanding, a lack of empathy um, from other races for one another. Um, and I just feel like I've never really understood why like there's been so much hate like towards another race. Like, why would you not want to see another person be successful? Like, why would you not want to see another person like be treated equally, or just be treated badly? Like, that's just, you have to be a really hateful person to. I mean, some of the stuff that we see nowadays. So for me, I think just unity, just people working together more. Um, I think I saw it at one point, like it was improving, and now I feel like it's kind of reverting back to what it was. So just unity and understanding, and just, I guess, putting yourself in another person's shoes and being able to really understand, their struggle, and uplifting each other. Like, why would you not want the other person beside you to be, you know, to do good for themselves and be, feel safe and feel accepted. So just unity and understanding.
All right, unity and understanding. Thank you so much for that, Ebony. Sister Sonia.
Well, kind of piggybacking on what Ebony said, but also I would like to see before I leave this earth is that when I see a person, I don't see color. I see that person. You know, color is just one aspect of me or whomever, but to see the inside of the person, not just the outside. Also would like to see when I leave this world that this senseless crime that we're going through right now, you know, where it looks like people have no heart. They're just taking people out and it doesn't bother them. I just want some for them to understand that once you take that person out, they're not coming back. And it doesn't look like that they really care. I don't know where the the sense of having some type of conscience has gone to. Unfortunately, like I've told, my boys have lost so many friends through sense of violence that should not have happened. And some of these young men that I see that I know from when my boys were growing up, and I see them and they so hard
Mm,
and they so you say something to them like one gentleman said something to another one, and the way they talked to each other was terrible. And I just want them to understand that we're all in this together. We just have to find some way of unity, like Ebony said, and to just bring us together and just see me or them and not see a color and stop this senseless violence. That's what I'm hoping.
awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Sister Sonia.
Okay.
And Brother Hank.
All right. I'd like to see mankind, and especially my people, uh, express an unabiding love for an unconditionally loving Creator, and walk in the faith that suggests that they do love that Creator. I'd like to see people go to say, as Paul did say in his first letter to the Corinthians. He said, "When I was a child, I spoke as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things," which means to me that at some point, I don't know a whole lot, but as I go along, I'm picking up things. And as I get smarter or I become more intelligent, I should apply those things that I have picked up, and that will help me become a better person. I think that all too often we learn things, and then we just don't use those things that we've learned. And finally, in that same book, Paul said, "Now abideth faith, hope, and love." And we hear that abide so often, but it's like I think I'd like to substitute what abide means. He says, "Now accept or act in accordance with faith, hope, and love." It says these three, but in the end, the greatest of these will be love. So then I would like to see all of that, the people expressing their faith in the Creator, and showing love towards each other. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you all so, so very much for your insight, for just being conversation partners this evening, and for sharing with us this Black History Month. I truly pray that everyone that has been listening and everyone that has been sharing and brought wherever this has been broadcasted has taken something away from the conversation that will strengthen them and open up their perspective to move beyond the box and be open to different people, be open to others and learning from others and learning who we have been called to be in these days. So I want to say thank you to our tech team, Sister Tiffany in the background, making sure everything could coordinate with our participants and making sure that everything went smooth with the questions. So very grateful for her and the blessing that she is to Turner's Chapel. Thank you for another Real Talk with TC, and we look forward to seeing you another time. God bless and have a great evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.